Over the past week, Year 10 students have been learning about communication, presentation, sociology and film, and using these to empower them to design, develop and deliver their own lectures.
The lectures will be based around Hackney Young Futures Commission findings in the Valuing the Future Through Young Voices report. The key themes for young people were a secure future, a bright future through education, training and employment, an active future, an inclusive future, a safe future and a healthy future.
We have taken these themes and discussed what's important to us and why. As a young person, it's important to understand that you have the power.
Believe in yourself and go for your dreams. You can change the world and the future. What you decide to study and the career path you choose can lead to positive impacts in your community.
So let's hear what's important to us.
Firstly, we have Eleanor, Albu.
To follow, we have Kofi, Atiase.
Lastly, we have Chenai, Nkemka.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Albu. I'm a Year 10 student at Clapton Girls Academy. My interests include music, writing and politics, and I'm here to spread awareness about sexism in literature for young people. So when I was a child, I always loved reading the Beatrix Potter books. They were animals and they had exciting adventures everywhere. But as I've grown older, I've realised that most of Beatrix Potter's characters who got to run around and do exciting things and adventures were male. So we had Tom Thumb, Peter Rabbit, whereas one of her more prominently female characters, Mrs. Tiddlywinks, stayed at home and did the laundry. And I was realising this isn't a great message to spread to young girls, that while boys get to run around outside, women have to stay at home and do the laundry. And I was wondering what else I could find that was like this. So I'm talking today about how reading is for everyone. This is a quote I really like. A book is like a garden, carried in the pocket. It's a Chinese proverb, and I think this really sums up how I feel about reading, because when you're reading a book, you and your imagination can escape. You can go anywhere you want. You can have these characters are like your friends, and I think this is really important to so many children growing up, that they have this experience of reading. So I've got some benefits of reading. Learning new language, being able to discuss what's happening in the world. It helps to enhance their minds and their imaginations. It gives them hopes and dreams for the future, and it teaches them to show empathy, whether that's with a character or a friend at school. So my experience at bookshops is that when you walk in, you see the adult section, which has all the books are categorised by genre. So you have your fantasy books and your crime novels, whereas in the children's section, it's categorised by age, and then children choose books depending on what the cover looks like or who they think the book is aimed at. And this can be really helpful for kids choosing a new book, but it can also be very restrictive. If you feel that this cover doesn't look like a girl's book, but you want to read it, it can be very confusing for these children. So I'm going to talk about gender balance and characters first. So I did a little experiment where I found 3 age groups, and I found 10 best books according to the Guardian newspaper for those age groups, and looked at how many main characters were male and female in each book. So as you can see here, the amount of male characters in my first age group, 5 to 7 year olds, was overwhelmingly male, with 9 males, only 1 female main character in these books. And I was really shocked by this, because that's when you get into reading and you want to feel yourself that you're represented in these books and that you can see yourself in these characters, the way I always wanted to do this when I was young. I loved reading, and I didn't even realise this when I was at that age, but I do now, and this makes me really upset. And as you can see at the bottom, I've got some characters who are animals. Lots of characters in kids' books are animals, and there's no reason why these characters should be male or female. There's no reason why these books should be aimed at either gender, and yet they are. And so many animal characters are male, and I found this really confusing. I didn't understand it at all. Moving up the age categories, we've got the 8 to 12 year olds. Here you can see that it's so much more evenly spread. You've got male characters, female characters are even, and then some with multiple main characters in both genders. And this is so great, because you start to see as these kids are growing up, they're meeting more characters like Matilda, Hermione Granger, Tracy Beaker, who are all amazing, strong women. But you've also got on the other end, you've got your Harry Potters and the children from Narnia, and great, amazing, strong men as well. And this is so great to see for kids, because they need this even representation. And I did find it interesting that with Harry Potter is a good example. The author is female. There are so many strong, amazing people from both genders, but the book is called Harry Potter, and we see this a lot with books that the titular character is male, because that way it appeals to both genders, because girls grow up used to reading books that star men. If you want to read an amazing book about a strong character who's brave and has adventures, you read about boys. You don't read about girls as much. So women are prepared to read books that star a male, whereas boys don't read books that star girls because for the stereotype that they're going to not be as good books, whereas obviously they are. And the final age category, 12 plus, so 12 to 16, I'm thinking here. And we've gone to the other end of the spectrum, so we have female main characters here, overwhelming the male main characters. And this is amazing to see because you have The Little Women and you have his Dark Materials starring Lyra Belacqua. This is amazing. So we've got amazing women and we've got amazing men. And to carry on from my point about Harry Potter, you've got The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Goodnight Mr. Tom with men in the title, whereas some of the books here that star amazing women, such as The Sturk-Armed Kiss and The White Darkness, they don't specify which gender is going to be starring in the book, and they're amazing titles because they want to appeal to both genders. Now we're going to look at the marketing of books. So I've got some tables here where I've compared the gender of the author to the gender of the main character they wrote about. And as you can see with the youngest age group, 5 to 7, again, this is the same sample I used before, so you can see it's predominantly male. But it's interesting, the male authors were only writing for male main characters, whereas the female authors were spread. So we need more female authors to be writing for female main characters, so there are enough for these children to feel represented. And the 8 to 12 age group, it's so spread, which is so great to see that it's almost entirely even. You've got males writing about females and males, and females writing about females and males. So these children are going to feel represented in these books that they read, which is so great to see. And finally, the final age group, you can see that here we see that the male authors are starting to only write about male main characters. The female authors are starting to only write about female main characters. I think the reason for this is that when the fiction gets more realistic, such as when these kids are growing up and reading more about things that might affect them, and the genders start to separate a bit more when they're teenagers, it's good that the authors are writing for their gender as a child because you can see that it's going to relate to them more. They're going to be able to understand, yeah, I felt like this as well, and this is how I feel. So it's really great that we're seeing that in these books. And this is something I found really recently that really shocked me, the Usborne books. You've got Usborne Growing Up for Girls and Usborne Growing Up for Boys, and they are so different. Growing Up for Girls is pastel colours and swirly fonts with hearts and flowers. Growing Up for Boys is geometric and bold and dark colours with skulls and footballs. These books, they're going to be the same. Everybody needs a book about puberty because everybody goes through puberty at some point in their life. So the fact that these books are going to alienate kids who don't feel this way. If you're a girl, you don't feel like you like this stuff, this book is going to make you feel like, you shouldn't be reading this when everybody needs a book like this to help them grow up. And, this really upset me. I felt quite disgusted by this because it's so stereotypical. It's something we so should have moved past by this point in society. And yet, Usborne is still using this in today's society. So what can we do about this? So I think bookshops and libraries should organise kids' book by genre and not gender. Schools should encourage reading whatever book you want. No book should be aimed exclusively at boys or girls, but for everybody. And we discovered that the default character is male in most cases. In fact, girls often read more than boys, and they read more in their lives. And we discovered that only when the storylines branch into more realistic fiction does the writing feature strong female characters, almost like when they need for it to specify women for the storyline, that's when they include them. But when it could be either gender, they'd much rather write about male characters, which makes no sense because everybody deserves to see themselves represented in books. We need to change the narrative. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it and you found it interesting and informative.
Hello, my name is Kofi. I'm in Year 10 and I go to a school called Bridge Academy. Today I'm going to be talking about feminism. I'd like to start with a question. How would you feel if you were treated worse than the other half of the world just because of the way you were born. Personally, I would feel like it's unfair. My slideshow is about all the different types of feminism and how they can contrast each other, despite them all fighting for the same cause of equality between men and women. In such a diverse place like Hackney, surely one type of feminism can't speak for everyone. In fact, everyone has their own stories and their own experiences, so feminism can't always be as inclusive as it should be. Feminism is different for everyone. There are different types of feminism, such as liberal, Marxist, radical, black feminism, and also another factor that changes how you feel about feminism and how it affects you is where you come from. In different cultures and societies, inequality can almost be seen as normal from where you're from. I don't think this is right, and I think we need to change it. Out of all of the different types of feminism, none are necessarily more correct than others, since they all try to fight for equality between genders. People who support feminism more so just support equality and believe everyone should be equal. In a way, everyone should be a feminist. I feel like, as a male myself, I have a different viewpoint on feminism, since it doesn't affect me in the way it affects so many women. Naturally, I believe everyone deserves equality, but at the same time, it doesn't affect me. Of course, I still have women in my life that I care about and don't want to face oppression, since it's not right. It's important for both men and women to understand and care about feminism, or nothing can truly change. On a more serious note, male supremacy can get to such a point where women start to fear for their lives. If something doesn't happen soon, we could have an irreparable divide between men and women in society. I made this graph purposefully big so I can show you the shocking truth. Unfortunately, due to a loud minority of feminists, feminism can seem even more polarizing of a topic. Due to some actions that don't speak for feminism as a whole, to outsiders, feminism can be seen as a radical movement, and a violent one at that, when it isn't the case. Feminism today has started to lose the main idea they were fighting for, because there are so many different types of feminism, and each one, in some way or another, doesn't agree with each other. They almost stop fighting the patriarchy and start fighting each other. This is called internalized misogyny. Also, some women may not believe that they can play a part in feminism because of their gender. Well, this is not correct. In some ways, everyone experiences feminism, whether it's against them or it's happening to someone they care about. On a more positive note, feminism does seem to be improving, with now in the UK 2/3 of young women identifying as being feminists. Adding on to that, the range of employment opportunities for women is higher now than it ever has been. I believe if we keep campaigning for equal rights, eventually we may live in a world where everyone is treated equally. One idea I have about helping achieve this future is by creating more ways to spread awareness and raise funds for the feminism cause, such as fairs and celebrations that could take place in local areas like Hackney. I'll ask you this again. How would you feel if you were treated worse than everyone on the other half of the globe just because of how you were born?
Hi, my name is Chenai, and I'm going to be discussing about the inequality from children in the educational system. Now, there are 3 points I'm going to be making in this lecture. The guidance and support of the educational system that provides for children, Stories about a child that has been neglected and denied the right of an education, and solutions about how we can solve this. Now there are two graphs that are going to be shown. One is going to be the rates about the exclusions of children who are eligible for free school meals and children who are not. As you can see in the graph, there is a 0.09 rate of eligibility for children who have free school meals. Now, in the second rate, you're going to see that there's a massively low rate for children who are eligible for free school meals. Now, I don't know about you, but children who are not eligible for free school meals have a low rate for exclusions, which is not right. And those who are eligible for this, they have a higher rate for exclusions. Now, how is that fair for a school to be excluding these children who are in need for help and do not have the support to have their own free school meals? Now, did you know that a staggering 83% of all permanent exclusions from primary schools were pupils who were recorded having special education? Those children that needed help more than any other child denied the right to have a right education and were neglected and put to the side. Now, for the things that you do not know, the people who were most likely to be excluded from school were boys, those who are from mixed or black ethnic groups, older children, and those who are in need for additional support. Now, there are three that you do not know about: SEND, ASND, and ALN. Now, for those who don't know what those stand for, SEND stands for Special Educational Needs and Disability, SEN stands for Additional Support Needs, and ALN stands for Additional Learning Needs. Now, those children who needed the extra support, who are not maybe considered to be born right, those were put aside and excluded from school and not provided for the right educational needs that they were supposed to have. Now, the second graph you'll be showing about the most deprived areas, about their fixed period exclusions. Now, pupils from school in the 10% of most deprived areas are roughly twice as likely to be excluded as their peers from school in the 10% less deprived areas. And the most deprived areas are most likely to have less fixed period exclusions. Now, this isn't right, because from those who are most deprived areas should have more support as they are in danger and not having a safe environment, and those who are less deprived have less exclusions are most likely to have a better education because they might be privileged, as those you might say. Now, in this next slide, I'm going to be talking to you about this boy named Kieran Loudon. Kieran Loudon was an 8-year-old boy who was excluded because he was considered a danger to his pupils and teachers. An 8-year-old boy. Now, his mother says that Kieran doesn't really understand what's going on, but he knows he can't go back to that school. She's worried that he's thinking about what school he'll take on if he's already been expelled from at the age of rape. Now, Kieran Loudon had a depict hyperactive disorder, which is also known as ADHD. Now, he had struggles of learning in school, but instead of his teachers helping him and providing him more support, they took him out of school, and then the next day were told that he was excluded. Now, he needed that extra support from his teachers, but instead of this, he was neglected and put to the side. They would call his mum and say that he was running around in the playground. But what school should have been focusing on was providing him the support and the safe environment that he needed to have in school, instead of focus about the problems. Now, the solutions that we can have from this is to have support groups for children in need for advice and counsel. Now, children are young and they are impressionable, but they're also scared about the world, most likely now in this generation than before. We should have these support groups that can support them, have counsel and advice, and just help them throughout life. Other things that we could have are state programs. State programs can encourage you for a better education. Now, children think that it may not be as cool as to have a better education, but these state programs could provide them with more encouragement, as I have had in my past years. Now, other things we could have are teachers to be more focused on helping students instead of certain individuals. Teachers are focused on certain individuals who think that they could have a higher grade with more support, but those who have higher grades are being neglected and put to the side, which isn't right. Those children need to have the more support than other children have. We should have equality for all children and not favoritism. And most importantly, children need to have a safe environment in school. School is supposed to be a place where children feel free, excited, and feel comfort to know that they are safe, and they also have a better education for themselves. But instead of this, children feel scared. They may not feel welcome in school because of these teachers not giving them that right. Now, this is a really important subject for me. Why do I care? I care because as a child who grows up in Hackney, it may not always be safe. But as I grew up, I had these programs that put me in as a prime example for all the children who don't feel excluded. You can become something. Because myself, I've been in programs throughout my entire life, and it's pushed me to become a neurosurgeon. Now, many of you know that going in the medical field, it may not be easy, but I know that this education system could improve and encourage more children to become themselves. Now I'm going to leave you with this quote that I really think that you should all think about and you should stick through your mind. Everyone should have the chance to be something and become something. Thank you.
What were your goals or are your goals?
You know what? I had so many goals. So initially, I wanted to be a journalist. Then I wanted to be a lawyer, but too many books. But I initially sort of came to settle that I wanted to go into project management and sort of deal with like creative projects. What about yourself?
So personally, I would love to be a barrister. It's always been a dream of mine, it's always been a goal of mine. But since I've started working with Hackney Young Futures Commission, my main goal has always been to create change, as stereotypical as it is, especially for the youth of Hackney. Young people are not heard enough in politics. We're usually the forgotten generation, and I aim to change that. What was or is your reality in Hackney?
So with Hackney in mind and my sort of creative goals, I have opportunities such as Hackney Empire Young Producers, which sets out different creative opportunities to do with artists producing, which I get involved with, and be able to sort of network with like-minded people and just be able to sort of put a display of talent around. And what would you say your reality is?
I believe Hackney is definitely changing for the better, but there is a long journey to go still. Coming from a working class background and an ethnic minority background, my reality could have been hard. I've always had to act on what I want by myself and find new work experience and things that would benefit me with my own research. However, with the projects that Hackney Young Futures Commission is creating and the support that they're giving to young people through workshops is definitely changing the reality of young people in Hackney.
Of course, and I feel that's quite visible when I was sort of chosen to be on the interview panel selecting someone to lead in the sort of diversity and leadership challenge in Hackney Council. So
What were your opportunities?
Well, I've been sort of fortunate to have loads of opportunities with Hackney. So we've got the Hackney Young Producers, and it sort of stemmed onto like other opportunities such as being involved with helping young people during sort of COVID-19 times and employing who would lead diversity and inclusion in Hackney, and just making sure that conversation about sort of racism and equality is always on the table. So what about yourself?
My opportunities were very much politics-based. I've had great opportunities presented to me from the Hackney Young Futures Commission that have allowed me to develop my skills in communication, public speaking, teamwork, and so much more. And since I started working with Hackney Young Futures Commission March 2020, the first opportunity I had was the COVID conversations. I was able to represent young people from my area and explain the issues that surrounded COVID-19 and the changes that we'd like to see. We talked about mental health, we talked about education, we talked about employment, and we were promised by the Mayor of Hackney change. After that, there were many other projects that I was able to contribute in, such as help design a London-wide public health campaign targeting a younger audience, help design parks for young people, and so much more. What did you do to reach your goals, and what will you do to reach your goals?
So in terms of sort of creating like daily habits and working towards my goal, I would sort of set up time to just sort of draw out what I want, get very sort of sticky and messy with like vision boards and stuff like that, and just sort of set, steps out to be able to sort of continuously work towards that. So, I know I wanted to, do project management, sort of creative stuff. So I, regularly engage with or network with creative opportunities, work on my own sort of film projects, and sort of just work step by step and just begin to talk to people who are way ahead in terms of the industry. What would you say you do to?
So personally, I think there's only one word for that, and that's determinism. I was very determined. I wanted to achieve my goals. I wanted to achieve my dreams, and I researched for work experience. I went on the Young Hackney page, and as hilarious as it is, I emailed my MP 4 times for work experience. And that was because I was determined to make change, because I no longer wanted the issues that me and my community face on a daily basis to continue. However, this is not the end, and I still have a long journey ahead of me. And I will continue pushing the authorities and continue raising my voice to achieve my goals and to bring about change in my community.
Nice. It's nice to see us using separate opportunities to create a difference.
Yeah.